welcome. This is a Confessions podcast, but it's not a normal Confessions podcast because instead of stories from you, we have stories from your Radio 2 hosts, who, it turns out, have been up to no good. This week, then, in week 1 of our Radio 2 Presenters Confess series, we only got 4, so it's a short series. We had a school day stinging secret from Alan Deadly Dedicoat. We had a gap year yarn from the Dark Lord, Alex Lester. A tall television tale from Annika Rice. And a party bag blunder from Sarah Cox. Here they all are. It's Radio 2's Confessions Week, and whereby we invite some members of the Radio 2 presenting community to unburden themselves. And, of course, there was a very, very long queue, but we've selected Deadly to go first because he is
I'm the only one free this Monday.
That's right.
I'm the only one free, everybody.
And a pillar of the broadcasting establishment.
What did you call me?
And I know an awful lot of people were very excited when I mentioned that it was your confession. Corrie Caulfield, your friend over at Radio 4.
Lovely Corriona.
So this is actually going to be sort of like the BBC stops to hear Deadly confessing because it could be a showbiz story. I'm hoping that maybe it's...
Well, some friends in Brood in Staffordshire, just sort of Wolverhampton way, have already texted in saying, well, which one are you going to choose?
Yes.
Where do you start?
Well,
Where do you start?
And if he doesn't choose the right one, but you know something better, you can always email confessions@bbc.co.uk. Meantime, this is the one that's got through.
Dear Father Simon.
Yes.
It's a relatively tame confession, this, but I've had to live with the guilt.
You've apologised for it already.
Sell it, love.
But I've had to live with the guilt for years.
Whatever.
And I mean years. Late summer every year, I get a reminder of the trauma surrounding this incident. When there's fruit on the trees and wasps
Oh, hang on.
become hyperactive. Stop snorting.
Was it there?
Is that you snorting?
Sorry.
Yes, stop. My heart sinks. Now let me take you back to September 1964. I was 9 and a pupil at Silver Street Primary School in Withall. Now, in case you're wondering where that is, it's a delightful village in Worcestershire, south of Birmingham, if you're looking for it on a map.
No.
We were enjoying an Indian summer. Can you say that these days? You probably can't. I've done it. It was a lovely and warm September.
No reason, but let's move on.
Yeah, exactly. And the boys at school were still in short trousers, because it was still summery, you see. It was just after 9 o'clock in the morning, and everyone was in the hall for assembly. Classes were lined up in ranks, serried ranks, some sideways on, so that we'd all fit in and have a view of the head teacher, a charmless and ever so slightly miserable woman from Cumbria, I think.
Oh, let's narrow it down.
Nothing wrong with Cumbria, obviously. Minutes into assembly, there was a song, and we all got to our feet. All things bright and beautiful it was. And it was at this point that things started to go wrong. Not for me, luckily, but for another boy. Let's call him Ricky.
I bet that's his real name.
It is, actually. He was older and taller than me, and all I can remember is that I didn't like him. I think he was a bit of a bully, and he was generally obnoxious. Know the type? I'm sitting next to one. Well, anyway, as someone...
Rebecca?
No, not at all. Other side. Well,
Matthew?
anyone, as someone who hated the things, I was always on the lookout for wasps. It's hard work, this, isn't it? It's hard work. And that morning, one flew into the hall, on cue as we started singing. I watched its every move like a hawk. It buzzed us all at one point, taunting us all, and then suddenly dropped down. Ah! I could no longer see the buzzy blighter. Where is it? Where is it? And then I caught sight of it again. It was gently hovering along the front row of the choir. They were all busily singing their heads off. Let me just check with the producer. Do you want me to sing this, don't you? That's true. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them
Different
all.
times, different times.
Fantastic.
The winged beastie was now alongside the boy I disliked, and then it started exploring, as wasps tend to do. And suddenly, I saw it fly up his trouser leg.
Hey.
What to do? If I shouted, I'd have been shouted at, or worse, by the head teacher, who I didn't like either.
The woman from Cumbria?
Not one of my greatest fans. No. So I kept quiet, which is more than the other boy did when the wasp obviously panicked in the dark. The boy in question, Ricky, flung his arms in the air. There was a wah! And a crazy dance. And then there was a loud scream. The sound of a group of not yet woken up teachers rushing a child out of the hall. Now, to this day, I've kept quiet about the incident. Part of me feels I might have been able to stop the wasp stinging Ricky. Part of me thinks if he'd been a bit friendlier to me, I might not have hesitated to protect him and told him that he was in danger of being stung. All I know is it hasn't helped my aversion to wasps, and I still have flashbacks to the summer of '64. So, Father Simon,
Yes.
and my fellow forgivers, it's true, I ask for forgiveness from Ricky, who was ceremoniously stung in the trouser leg department due to my silence. Yours, in guilt, Uncle Al the Kiddie's pal.
How many times? So was he just stung the once, as far as you know?
As far as I know, yeah, I didn't expect.
But he went. But it was
It
definitely.
was quite a, yeah.
It was. The wasp had worked his way.
It's probably the wasp's first one of the day, wasn't it? Been working on it overnight. I think they do, don't they? They store it up. They're just horrible. If I'm in a room with one of us has to die.
And the wasps.
And so far, I'm still here. Let's just say I'm still here.
When do we get
all right?
you in a Stallone movie, Dudley?
And
Me and the
One
wasp.
has to die.
The Worcester Wasps of '64 are still spoken about as being particularly.
That was a bad year. It was a
Vile.
bad year. Yeah, it was a bad year for them.
Sister
Bad year
Rebecca,
for
now I
them.
know you share an office with Deadly. So
I do.
I'm just-
I've never seen that side of you, Deadly. Especially the
well.
singing. That was amazing. 10 out of 10.
All things.
we don't need it
No, I
again,
don't
though.
think we do.
It was beautiful. And also 10 out of 10 for delivery. It was quite tame, though, wasn't it? If that is the worst
No, it
thing you
was.
can come up with, then...
Yeah, well, it's all that
you-
we'll get through compliance.
Ah, I see. Okay, I was about to say you've had a very pure life. But
That's very kind of you to
actually,
notice.
Ricky, I think it was definitely Ricky's fault because he bullied you.
He was horrible.
And
Horrible
yeah,
to
if
me.
he hadn't been horrible to you, you would have pointed it out before it was
I'd
too
have
late.
said,
So
"There's a wasp up your leg, mate."
I completely
Yeah.
blame Ricky and not you. You are forgiven.
But if
Rebecca,
a
I love you.
If
I
a
love
wasp
you.
goes up someone's trousers, I don't know really what you're supposed to
Well,
do.
yeah,
about it.
that's
You're
my
supposed to
fault,
tell
yes.
them, aren't you?
Well,
Well,
I
you
mean,
wouldn't,
no,
obviously.
I mean, what are you going to do?
Point
I
it
don't
out to
understand-
your friends. Look at that.
No, I don't understand why Dudley's getting flashbacks to '64. He wasn't stung. He wasn't stung. Nobody was stinging him.
Yeah, but I could have
So,
stung-
It's Paul
Guilt.
Wilf.
It's called guilt, you
Will
idiot.
or Jeremy or whatever. He was the one that should be getting flashbacks.
Ricky, you
So
fool.
Ricky, there you go. But it does explain a lot about Dudley's behaviour in the office and the fact that
When a wasp
he
comes
won't be doing with the window open
Oh, no,
in
we're
the
not having
office,
that.
even during the summer
No.
when it's too hot and the air conditioning isn't working, which it never is. So for that reason, I am not going to forgive him.
We've just started our Celebrity Confession Week, where we've invited a number of Radio 2 presenters to confess an awful lot. If there is a Radio 2 presenter that you'd like to hear a confession from, be reasonable. Just on an email, please, simonmayo@bbc.co.uk. Everybody wants to hear from the Dark Lord, though. That's certainly the case. I was hoping, Alex, that maybe there'd be a bit of daylight in the sky.
Oh, you can't be doing with daylight. I can't be doing with daylight.
No?
I turn to dust.
Okay. Well, I'm very sorry. But anyway, it was...
Got my music.
Have you?
By the sound of it.
Oh, what, this? Is this
Yes.
your favourite tune?
Well, it has that sort of darkness feel to it, doesn't it, really?
Yes, that's true. Anyway, I don't know whether you are a righteous liver. You know, I don't know if you have a righteous liver, and I just don't know whether you live well or whether you forgive. I'm not quite sure, about you really. So I'm not sure whether this is going to be a real kind of slimy tale, or whether it's just going to be something you've made up involving Toblerone and chips.
No, this is all true, and I'm bearing my soul here, Simon.
Okay, well, the collective is sitting there waiting in judgment. They're wearing their special hats. Over to you, Dark Lord.
Dear Father Simon and the collective,
Yes,
this is my story.
yes.
I left school with a brace of mediocre A-levels and a handful of O-levels with no clear idea of what I wanted to do with my life, other than I wanted a job where I didn't have to wear a suit. My parents, aware that they had an idiot son, tried to steer me towards a safe, untaxing job with a good pension. Join the bank, suggested my GP father, realising that further down the line I was going to be a drain on resources. But I failed my maths O-level, I protested. After hiding in my bedroom for a considerable period of time, listening to Black Sabbath and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, I emerged to find that my ever-resourceful dad had booked me in for a session with the Vocational Guidance Association in London's Harley Street. One comprehensive bath, haircut and an ear examination by my mother later, I was put on the train from Walsall to London, wearing my one suit with flared trousers and turn-ups.
Nice.
I am Roger Moore. Reporting to a rather forbidding building, I was shown into a classroom containing a dozen or so similarly baffled and freshly bathed individuals. On each desk was a pile of cards and a skewer. We were told the cards were multiple choice questions and we were to poke a hole in the card opposite the answer we liked best. There were a mountain of these cards and a very limited time to poke them all. The idea being we would have to rush through them and so would not be able to give them much thought. This would access our inner mind or something. A sample question read something like this. What would you rather be? 1. A sofa. 2. Dead. Or 3. The conductor of the Halley Orchestra. Some weeks later, a file arrived. My father studied it very carefully and opined that I was a people person, and the career for me was in public relations. I just needed one thing. Experience. Cue sound of trombones. Wah, 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 wah. I trudged from office to office, interview to interview, all with the same result, until one day I ended up at a public relations consultancy in Halesowen in the West Midlands, where another man who looked and sounded like all the others I'd met told me exactly the same thing. As I shuffled out of his office dejected, I noticed a Bob Cratchit figure hunched over a desk. He spoke. What you need to do to get experience is to go on the Communication Studies course at Birmingham Polytechnic. It's a 3-year course, and you get to go on work experience. I did, and look at me. Panic. It was late summer. The new college year was due to start imminently. I went to see the tutors at the Polytechnic for a rigorous interview. Hello, I said. Term starts next week, they replied. I was in. I was a student, and I certainly didn't have to wear a suit.
Hooray.
When I arrived home, the house was empty. The phone was ringing. I answered it. It was Dave, one of my best friends from school, due to go to a proper university to study geology. I've got 3 weeks before uni starts, so I'm thinking of going to the south of France camping. You up for it? With breathtaking short-termism, which haunts me to this day, I agreed. Later that evening, how did you get on at the Polytechnic, my parents asked. Very well. I'm just the sort of person they're after, but the course is full this year, so I'll have to wait until next autumn. I'll just get any old job in the meantime and go next year. Dave and I are off to France tomorrow for 3 weeks. Can I borrow some money? As I said, I'm not good at maths. Subtract 3 weeks from 52. That's a lot of time to fill once the holiday was over. Father Simon, a wonderful holiday was had by myself and Dave, but back in the drizzle of 1970s Walsall, the true horror of what I'd done welled up as the tan faded. So how did I fill those weeks and months? That's right, I got a job as a clerical assistant at what was then known as the Department of Health and Social Security, and in the evenings I worked behind the bar in a pub for 25 pence per hour, where a selection of people called Jeff or Blue would ask me if there was any danger of a drink in here. I hated them all. After 3 months, with breathtaking irony, the DHSS made me redundant. So I went to the Employment Exchange to sign on. They took one look at my threadbare CV and hired me as a clerical officer. Shortly after that, when it became apparent that people were starving due to not receiving their gyro checks, the paper trail of incompetence led back to me and my now very threadbare suit with flared turnips. I was promptly demoted. The only light at the end of the tunnel was a thought of rescue by further education, unless, of course, I didn't make the cut. What would happen if I never got onto the Communication Studies course that I'd turned down in such a cavalier fashion, purely to have 3 boozy weeks in a leaky, smelly tent in France? I would face an eternity as a filing clerk in a suit. The following year, I presented myself once more, terrified and still in the same dreadful suit, at Birmingham Polytechnic. "Hello," I croaked. "Term starts next week," came the reply. So, Father Simon...
It's tough to get in there.
Yes. I seek forgiveness from my dear mum and dad for lying to them about the Polytechnic course being full, and also for the extra money they had to shell out, not only for my 3 weeks in France, but for the rest of that year. I also asked those poor souls whose gyro checks took an eternity to arrive to be understanding. I was young, and as I said in my introduction, I was an idiot. And lastly, I seek forgiveness for my crimes against fashion with my flared suit with the turnips. Father Simon, they were indeed different times.
They were indeed. No, absolutely. And a fabulous confession, Alex. Thank you very much indeed. So, lying to your parents just so you can go on holiday for 3 weeks, and the job just had to... Did they know about this?
Well, sadly, my mother died before she found out, but my father knows. The 30-Year Release of Information Act.
Sister Rebecca, what do you say to the Dark Lord?
Well, the thing is, you did lie to your parents, Alex, but ultimately it was you who suffered. You had to do that that clerical job and the bar work for a year, although I think it probably was pretty good for your character. I mean, nothing wrong with a bit of filing and serving pints to people.
I was A to L. I didn't even get to do M to Z. I was only half the alphabet.
So I think that all of that was good for your character and laid the foundations for the man you are today, actually. So despite the short-termism... Exactly. Despite the short-termism, you got onto the course eventually. What's a year? I'm going to forgive you.
What's another year, as Johnny Logan once opined? Sister Bobby from the Prowler.
Yeah, it's a similar situation. Hacky, do not forgive most of those things. I have to say, lying to your parents. A trip to France was fabulous. Who knows what would happen? It may have been your last,
3 weeks in a tent.
It's great fun in France. And also, like Rebecca said, there's nothing like being a public service servant in the pub and basically the office. And the only thing you don't get forgiven for, actually, is the people that you let down with their checks every week. So that's the only people that I think you really, really, really let down, because it seems like you've done okay since then.
It's been all right since then, but it was a bit of a tough start, I must admit.
And finally, Brother Matthew.
There are a few gems in there. I love the interview questions. Would you rather be a settee or dead? Brilliant. And also, I love the fact that you hated all the people you were serving pints to. Having worked behind a bar as well, I
can tell you, having worked behind a bar, all the fun is the other side.
Absolutely, yes. No fun at all being on the other side pulling the pints. So for that reason, I'm going to forgive, because it took me back to working behind a bar.
Annika, hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
It's very nice to have you on the show.
Very extraordinary. Well, it's dangerous being here, obviously.
Well, obviously with Matt and his...
Matt on my left.
Can I say again that I did not spit at Annika Rice? I was really excited to see Annika Rice, and I happened to be eating at the time, and something came out of my mouth.
As you said, Simon, you love a running joke.
Absolutely. And that was certainly a running joke, because it ran its way all the way down your immaculate jacket. Anyway, if you have a particular Radio 2 presenter who you'd like to confess, drop us a line and we'll pass it on and we'll make sure that they do. Anyway, Annika, we're all waiting.
I had to change my confession because having heard Alan Dedicate and talking about the dark area and Ricky's trousers and the wasp, I just thought I better not do my school one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I've just gone off on a tangent, an even worse confession, really.
Wow, so, very good. We're waiting.
Checked this one, have you just come in with it?
I know it hasn't been checked at all.
Brilliant, even
it's
better.
Absolutely fine.
Okay, take it away.
Okay, Father Simon.
Yes.
I would like to apologise to Hong Kong.
Hey!
It's a long story. I'll keep it short. It's 1978. I'm 20, and I've just finished 2 years of training at the BBC. I've been working for the World Service, typing scripts, making the tea, booking guests, and I've also had a spell at Television Centre, typing more scripts, making more tea. I became the master of the hanging up of a guest's coat, and really good at taking lunch orders. So you can see, largely unskilled work, but very enjoyable.
Of course, yes.
After such a promising start to my BBC career, I then handed in my notice and decided to book a one-way ticket to Hong Kong. I'd just split up with a boyfriend I'd had since I was 15, and I had to get away right away.
Was it his fault? Oh.
It's none of your business. Can I just say at this stage, if you're going to interject, I'm going. OK? It's not right. I've never heard him do interjection before. I never knew there was such an option on this.
You'll find it's my show and I can do what I want.
Anyway,
carry on.
Boyfriend and I had parted our ways. I had to get away several thousand miles. Take it as you like.
Okay.
Hong Kong sounded mysterious and exotic. I wouldn't need a work permit. The head of personnel at the BBC was surprised. No one had ever resigned from the BBC at the start of their career, aged 20. Are you sure, dear? She said. I packed my bag, waved goodbye to work colleagues, my slightly bewildered family, and boarded a plane with £100 worth of savings and one contact number for a company. Let's call them PRR Us. I'd only been on a plane once before, and though I'd won the geography prize at school, Hong Kong had never featured in any lesson. Now, you have to remember that in those days, travel was still a real adventure. In Hong Kong, I would be uncontactable. I was heading into the unknown. No mobile phones, nothing. I was dizzy with excitement. I felt like I was in a film. I was the heroine, so that though things might get bad, everything would turn out all right for me in the end.
Yes.
Good. Hong Kong was humid and alien and exotic and crowded. People just teemed everywhere. The city operated on a 24-hour treadmill. On the flight, I'd sat next to a very nice family who said I could stay with them for a couple of weeks while I sorted myself out. I was off. Scene 1, action. The public relations company said I could be the receptionist for a few days. My problems started then and there. To you and I, in the late 70s, a reception was a meet and greet area, a vase of flowers and one phone which could miraculously connect to other phones in the building. I was used to the BBC reception, which was where Derek Nemo might be there to collect his dressing room key or flowers would arrive for Diana Dawes. This reception was not like that. The desk was built into a bank of flashing, buzzing machines. There was also a word processor I was supposed to operate. What's a word processor, you might be saying, listening to this? Well, I was saying just the same thing as I was sitting there looking blankly.
I was going to say it, but it was an interjection and you wouldn't be pleased with it.
Oh, no, but actually, I was missing your interjection.
Carry on. I'm just feeling sorry for the boyfriend.
Oh, no, well, it's a long story. It's another programme. Yes. Do you think we should explain what a word processor is? It's the precursor to the computer. Yes. I'd never seen anything like it. I'd learnt to type, get this, on a manual typewriter at the BBC. Never on anything with a plug. Anyway, the end of the day, a very nice man called Mr. Spatchcock called me into his office and said he didn't think things were going to work out. Apparently, I'd caused chaos, cutting off callers and activating the fire alarm. I opened my mouth to apologise, and out came the first whopper of a lie. I'm so sorry, I said. I'm straight from the BBC in London, where I'm a producer. I've always had an assistant. I've never had to do typing. How old are you? He said. 25, I said, reckoning that was the sort of age where you might be deemed to be in control of your life. I sat waiting for him to sneer and shut me out. What a blatant lie! Meanwhile, thinking this was a really good plot line for the heroine in my film. To my astonishment, he suggested I contact a colleague of his who worked for another PR company called Corporate Communications. And by the end of the week, I seemed to have a job as an account executive. I had my own desk and a secretary. But there were basic problems. What was PR?
You didn't even know what it was.
I had no idea what it even stood for. Never heard of it. And what was an account executive? There was no Google in those days to look up PR, us, or corporate communications, or the word public relations, or the words account executive or colour transparency or copy or proofs or any of the other words that I heard in meetings that week and had no idea what they meant. I was in a strange country. I knew no one knew me. Who to ask without showing myself up as the complete con girl that I had become? The most extraordinary thing is that at no point did anyone ask me for a CV or a reference. I seemed to be outside the system. Over the next few months, I bluffed my way through writing press releases, brochures, organising events. I got sent on trips to Singapore to develop publishing deals. I made appalling mistakes, but weirdly no one noticed. I was starring in Catch Me If You Can, the Hong Kong version. I then got a job for the English-speaking news channel TVB as a sub-editor for the evening news. I know. What? One day the newsreader was taken ill. I'll stand in, I said. I'm a BBC newsreader.
What? You're a con artist, woman.
Yeah, I am. Was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That lie just plopped out. I sat in front of the camera that first night and tried to visualise Sue Lawley, my childhood heroine. What would Sue do? I put on my poshest voice, looked serious and read my way through the autocue. In the studio there was me, the Chinese cameraman who spoke no English, and an autocue device that you operated like a sewing machine with a foot pedal. I was terrified of pushing my foot down too harshly and the words spinning by in a blur, so I read very slowly, jerking my foot in tiny bursts, the words stuttering down the screen. On my second night as a newsreader, unfortunately, Spike Milligan was in the building recording an interview, and when I was live on air, he crept into my studio on his hands and knees and sat under my desk, pressing my foot down on the autocue pedal at inappropriate moments. This was a disaster. At one point, I scrolled through the international news altogether. I just watched it spinning away as I tried to think on my feet, or rather with my feet, and segue from the domestic news, a small fire on a junk in the harbour, to the sports news and weather. Unbelievably, I never got sacked from this job either. And then I got another job working for RTHK. This is the BBC equivalent in Hong Kong. I had to produce the Drive Time show. Ironic as I sit here now as a guest on your show, Father Simon. I was 21 now. I had as the presenter a man whose PR account I handled. He wanted to raise his profile in the business community, and I needed a bloke who knew about cars to present the show. Now, I'd been in radio studios at the World Service, but I'd never produced a show, and this was to be a sort of Top Gear on the radio at 5 o'clock every Friday evening. I used to pre-record George the presenter interviewing his guests on a Ewer, a bulky tape recorder, on location somewhere, then go back to my flat and edit the interview on the Ewer, cutting tape up with nail scissors and splicing the bits together with sticky tape. The interviews therefore sounded jumpy, there were gaps, aeroplanes over, drowning out key points. When I wasn't using these appalling interviews in the show, I would use items from the World Service that a loyal friend would post to me from the UK every few weeks. No email or even fax machines in those days, so the scripts would arrive weeks later, already out of date, and I'd get my poor presenter to talk about innovations and new products which were anything but and which were basically lifted from other programmes. Listen, this went on for 3 years, after which time I thought I should quit while I was ahead. No one had rumbled me. I was quite well known by now. I'd made a small fortune doing jobs I'd bluffed my way into, and frankly my work was mostly shoddy, but no one had noticed. I was now 22, pretending to be 29 now. I was tired of being so old. I'd missed my 21st, I missed my family. It was time to return home. Father Simon, I've never owned up to this 3-year odyssey. I've let down a lot of people. Firstly, Mr. Spatchcock, who trusted my story and gave me a break. The TV viewers who missed large chunks of the news each night due to my bad footwork, the drive time radio listeners who put up with an appalling show, not forgetting the big organisations I was meant to be doing PR for and whose reputation and images I was meant to be enhancing. So I need to apologise to Hong Kong, the whole island and outlying areas, Kowloon and even the New Territories. It's a small place, but my deception and ineptitude under duress will have touched many people. Please forgive me.
Well, I'm sort of speechless because everyone respects you, and yet your entire career is based on a fraud. You're a liar and a cheat.
Yeah, I know.
I think you're rushing to judgment there, Simon. Are you not?
I'm just devastated.
Well, you see, it was bad.
Anyway, I think it all started with a little white lie. I wouldn't say that the original lie was so bad. I mean, it's just called blagging a job, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exaggerating. And no one asked for your CV, so that's their fault.
It's a lie.
When you said you were a BBC newsreader, that was taking it a little bit further. But again, you could say that was just blagging. So I respect you for it, and you've done really well. And obviously it wasn't so bad that people complained, so you're forgiven.
Brother Matthew, what do you say here?
I mean, Annika obviously got away with this because she's so lovely and charming and all those reasons. And I know plenty of people who work in PR and they haven't got a clue what they're doing either. So I am going to, for that reason, definitely forgive.
Thank you.
Well, we've heard from Annika, and we've heard from Deadly, and we've heard from Alex Lester, and this week, Sarah Cox, Sounds of the 80s Queen, is here to confess.
We're visualised this Saturday, by the way.
Have you visualised your confession?
No. Okay. It was quite visual when it happened. Okay.
Take it away.
Dear Father Simon and the merciful Massive. This story, this sorry tale.
Good start.
You know what?
Can we talk to
I
the
want
dog?
to warn you now. I can't actually read. I can talk for England, but I can't read off a page. Here we go. This sorry tale took place 2 years ago on a dark and wintry afternoon. At my kids' school, I'm firm friends with 3 other mums, and our gang of 4 help each other out if one of us is stuck in traffic on the school run or something. Usually me, having been delayed interviewing Carol Decker or someone equally glamorous for my 80 show Saturday night at 10 o'clock. Or maybe if I've forgotten the date of a school trip or something. And every couple of months, we also assist each other in putting away responsible amounts of Sauvignon Blanc at one of our notorious mums' dinners. Now, I live very close by to 2 of the mums, and it was on this wintry weekend that it was my turn to take their boys, Joss and Ollie, along with my then 4-year-old son, Isaac, to a classmate's 5th birthday party. Now, it was taking place at a nearby leisure centre, and my concentration skills were at full pelt as we entered the party. Now, I watched the boys with all the eagerness of a border collie watching its sheep. To misplace one's own children in a public place is seen as bad form, but to lose somebody else's is pretty unforgivable. So I hooked up with the 4th mum and her boy Noah, and we gossiped while all 4 lads had a fine time in the clammy germ pit that is soft play. And time came to move to the cafe, And having worked up an appetite on the slides, tunnels and climbing nets, the boys wolfed down their pizza. Now, I even made sure they ate a carrot stick and a couple of grapes as well, thus ensuring my friends' kids had consumed at least 0.26 of their 5 a day.
Very important.
Go me! Boy, I was doing well. The happy birthday song was sung, candles were extinguished and party bags handed out, and the bash had been a huge success. Now, as I gathered the 3 boys together and bundled them into their coats, the mum of the birthday boy mentioned something about bath stuff in the party bags. But I was concentrating so hard on herding them out the door and into the darkness that I didn't really take much notice, and that there was to be my downfall. So all 3 boys...
I know what's going to happen.
All 3 boys were safely...
I don't.
All 3 boys were safely strapped into the back of my car, and as we drove home, I admit I did feel pretty smug about just how smoothly things had gone, and I listened to their snippets of happy chatter as it drifted into the front, and they tucked into the contents of their party bags. Phrases such as, "Mine tastes a bit funny," and "It's really crunchy," and "It's weird, but it's not that bad," caught my attention, and my eyes widened as I remembered the early warning about bath stuff. Whilst inwardly shouting a slow motion, "No!" I pulled over, mounted the curb, whacked on my hazards and put the car interior lights on to investigate further. Sure enough, all 3 boys had opened up their sachets of brightly coloured bath salts from the party bags and eaten them. And despite their completely disgusting taste, they'd persevered because basically sweets are sweets.
Yeah,
so they were like, this taste is going to improve.
Obviously.
It's sweets. We've got to eat them. They're sweets. Like some macabre rainbow, my son had an orange smile, and Joss and Ollie were sporting bright green and electric blue mouths, respectively. Now, having escorted the boys so carefully, I now had to deliver them home with the words, "Absolutely fine. I mean, you won't believe what happened. Oh, it's really funny, but..." Now, luckily my friends found the whole thing completely hilarious. One is a nurse and one is a GP, and people in the medical profession are remarkably unflappable about their own kids' health. So it's not my friends I'm asking forgiveness of, but they're gorgeous boys who, I was told, went on to produce spectacularly colourful bodily function for the next couple of days.
Wow.
So sorry, boys.
Yeah, sorry, boys. So they actually consumed and swallowed. They didn't just taste it and spit it out.
They persevered. A little bit sort of like popping candy. I think they must have thought it was
like
something was
space
going to happen.
dust.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll have like chocolate in the middle, but it didn't. Very fine story. Sarah Cox's confession. Now, Sister Rebecca goes.
Oh, the joys of soft play. The sweaty socks, the stink, the screaming children. It brings it all back.
It's
I'm
like
still
a petri
there,
dish
actually.
of germs, isn't it?
It's
But
awful.
with a few
weapons grade.
and things.
I think I'm asking myself who gives bath salts in a party bag. Actually,
Good
I mean, I'm
question,
sure the
yes,
mother
good
is really
point.
nice and everything, but I've never heard of that. And isn't it a bit risky, really, when you've got children who are bound to eat anything that looks
Kids
like
don't
a
like
sweet?
bath salts.
It's
They
also
don't really
risky
like bath salts.
No.
if the mother in charge doesn't listen to
Well,
the
that's
instructions that she tried to tell me as well, to
That's
be fair.
very true. I also think it's partly the kids' fault. I mean, I know your child was doing this as well. I mean, but you know, not sort of being put off by a very bad taste. I mean, I don't think you should worry because I don't think these things are toxic. I mean, bath salts wouldn't be toxic, would they?
No.
Because you wouldn't put them in a bath if they were toxic. So I don't think there was any harm done apart from the colourful excretions
Yes.
in days to
Thank
come.
you so much.
So you are forgiven.
Yay, thanks.
Novice Nigel.
Sarah, can I take it that it was a mistake rather than you were actually giving them bath salts as part of an exotic?
Yes, I try to avoid giving my children any toiletries to eat at any point, even if I've forgotten their after-school snack.
What was it that should have gone in?
Frowned upon. Well, it was in there. It was in there with all the sweets and with bubblies and things like that. And
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you see, I think that you're giving far more credence in your life to Beano. Because Beano, your dog's here, and I've seen no pictures of your children, and nothing like that. He's come in on a lead and everything like that, and he smells
I
beautiful.
have a lead for my children too. They're
saying she's a
perfectly well looked
fantasist?
after.
He's got no orange, green or blue mouth tints or anything like that. He smells very fragrant. So on this occasion, Sarah Cox, I am not forgiving you
Oh,
for
my goodness me.
poisoning not only your children, but your friends' children.
Brother Matthew.
I love soft play, and apparently it's not okay for me to jump into a soft play ball pool with all the other kids. Apparently that's frowned on. So why is there no soft play for adults? That's what I want to know. And also, as Rebecca says, who puts bath salts in a kid's party bag? What's it? It's like, I'm going to do something nice for the kid. No, I don't want nice. I want sweets, chocolates. I don't want bath salts. You can give me a textbook. So I'm going to forgive.
See, now, I would quite like to get pretty much every Radio 2 presenter to offer us a story, and we all know Jeremy Vine has got a few things to tell us. Anyway, let us know your story, please, while we're waiting for Jeremy to write his. It's confessions@bbc.co.uk. More in a week, and the Weekly Mayo available to download right now. Thank you so much.